Okay, so we've left NBA, finish sanding and quality control. Next glued in, we go to the stain table. This is where the guitar says, in this case, it's a custom 24 with birds and a 10 top, and the color, important for the stainers to know, is Blue Mateo in this case. Once it's stained, they come back and they cut the binding. That gives it the picture frame effect. Once that's done, the guitars hang, they go into the spray room, we do a sealer coat, let the sealer dry, it's maybe about 40 minutes or something like that. We tape off the maple edge and the top in most cases. And then the same guys are gonna grain fill the mahogany. Mahogany is a very porous wood, and we're about to spray finish on here. So we have this paste-like substance, chemical substance that you rub into there. You wipe off the excess, what's left behind gets into the grain and hardens up, and it prevents as much finish sinking into the grain as possible. It's inevitable, it's gonna happen, you're putting finish on wood, but this prevents it a little bit. So, also we add a pigment to certain colors, that way the grain pops out a little bit more. You got Blue Mateo, you have Santana Yellow. It's like a black cherry base there. It's another coat there. It's a new color. Charcoal burst, that'll end up getting a burst on it. But you know, various colors, vintage yellow, orange, whale blue. After the guitar is stained and grain filled, it goes to these gentlemen and they're gonna go ahead and prep it for the base coat spray. Looking for scratches, dings, dents, bruises, anything to prevent it from moving on to the next process. So they tape off the fretboard, sides of the fretboard. Make sure there's no globs of grain filler anywhere. Just make sure it's up to quality specification. So the guitars come from the base coat spray prep into the spray room. They're spraying polyester base coat. It's pretty much a leveling coat that we use. It's 4 passes of this polyester, tacks up between each pass. The final build on the poly is about 12 mils when it's all said and done. We actually sand most of that off. Like I said, it's a leveling coat because you're dealing with hard and soft wood grain throughout the board or top or back. You're gonna get minor dips and high spots. And what this does is fills that in. We spray it, sits in here for about 2 days, cures up, and then we're gonna 220 sand it. Okay, in this process, this is called 220 sanding. These guys and girls get the guitars out of the curing room with all the polyester on it. It's about 12 mils when it starts. They machine sand most of it off, and then they hand sand the entire guitar with 220 grit sandpaper. What this does is, like I said, it levels out the paint, the polyester. It's a leveling coat, so it smooths out all the dips and high spots, make it a nice level surface. Also, what this does is it puts 220 grit sandpaper scratches into the paint, because the next paint coat, top coat, needs a mechanical bond for the paint to stick to. When they're finished, they check it over real thoroughly. It takes them about 45 minutes to sand a high line, sign their name in it, and it goes to the top coat prep people. The next process is top coat prep. These guys and girls will get the guitars from the 220 sanders once they're complete. It's kind of like a final QC area. If you've ever painted anything in your life, like a wall or a car or a motorcycle or anything like that, you know that the paint job only turns out as well as it was prepped. They're gonna basically look the whole guitar over as a whole unit, wet the whole thing down with wax and grease remover. They're looking for debris in the paint. They have to dig all that kind of stuff out. Wipe the thing down with wax and grease remover again, and then tape off all the non-painted areas. Now we're gonna send them into the top coat paint room. This is where they're gonna spray the color coat and the clear coat. So we use acrylic urethane clear coat. It's automotive finish. It's quite durable. It's good stuff, like liquid plexiglass basically. We spray the burst in because it's kind of hard to stain a burst. So they will spritz it in. It's hanging in a booth. They hit the back color. Obviously you can't touch it anywhere, so you get the horns and the tip of the headstock nice and even. But once the spec color is achieved, they bring it into this room. It sits where a QC person checks it over. If it looks good and it's to spec, they go back into a room. It's the scrape room where we peel the tape Guitar goes back to the spray room where we spray 5 passes of this acrylic urethane clear coat. Okay, next stage after the guitars were color coated and clear coated, and they're dry. The fine ladies and gentlemen around me are going to wet sand the guitars with 1000 grit sandpaper. But when they're finished, the whole guitar, including tip of the headstock, inside the horns, sides of the headstock, back, top, you name it, it looks like a mirror or a sheet of glass. Behind me are the guys that actually level the frets. So pretty much what they do is they pull the tape off the fretboard after it's been clear coated. They level the frets by incrementally adjusting the truss rod and filing down the frets to make sure that they're all level in the side, middle, and side. But they also roll the edges of the fretboard over. Gives it a nice broken in feeling. The next phase is turnaround, so that's what these guys are doing. Basically in the buffing room you can't heat the finish up too much or else it's going to melt, so they do it in stages. They're going to buff it. Kevin's going to mark it up with grease pencil, put it up in the rack. The guys are going to grab it, buff it again. Each time basically the idea is there's going to be less and less grease pencil, which means less and less scratches in the guitar. So anyway, it'll go through this turnaround phase 3-4 times maybe. When he's all done, he says it's good. He's going to put the Paul Reed Smith decal on the headstock. She'll get one. Put the shielding paint in the back cavities, in the electronics cavities. Then to polish the frets, we start with about a 600 grit sandpaper and we work our way up to 2000. So they're nice and shiny, bend notes, nothing sticky or do anything weird. At that point, he's going to check it over again. If it meets spec, he's good. He's going to walk it in the final assembly. And it's going to go through yet another quality check.